Hello, everybody. So maybe you have some noisy neighbors and you're so tired of hearing them day in, day out, keeping you up at night, whatever it may be. Maybe it's dogs barking. And so you've decided that you need to figure out how to soundproof a room in your house or maybe your entire house. But for this example, I'm going to talk to you through two scenarios, one that will be cheaper and easier, but may not give you the desired results per se, and then the completely professional route so you just understand what goes into soundproofing a room and getting those noisy neighbors out of your life. So before we jump in, I just want to let you know that I do have a soundproofing course that is completely free. Just check out the link below. If you want to go dive deeper into this content, I highly recommend checking out that free resource. All right, let's jump into the video. So before I even describe these two ways to soundproof a room, I want to give you a really quick basic idea, like soundproofing 101, of how sound isolation works, how we actually keep sound out and inside of a room. So first, mass, weight. Having really massive floors, walls, and ceilings is how you keep sound out. So if you want to keep those noisy neighbors out, you're going to need a lot of mass. Second, the room must technically be airtight because wherever air goes, sound goes. So any holes, any sort of leaks in your room are gonna bring in sound and bring in those noisy neighbors. Lastly, we have to worry about transmission. Sound can travel through structures. So it can travel through pieces of wood, it can travel through metal, it can travel through beams in your house. So anytime a piece of your house is touching another piece on the outside where sound hits the outside, travels through that piece of structure, whether it's brick or wood or cement or whatever, and it then travels to the inside of your room. So those are the three main things we need to worry about. I just wanted to prime you because that is super important for understanding what I'm going to talk about next. All right, so now let's go into the easier, cheaper option that may not give you the best results. But like I said, it might be worth trying this, and if you came across this video and you're just sick and tired of your noisy neighbors, this might actually work. So to start with, we're going to focus on the door. Your door in your room is potentially the weakest link in your whole room, and it's where a lot of sound could come through, especially if it's a door to the outside, but definitely if it's a door to the inside of your house. My first thing is to say, try getting a solid core door. Most doors in your home are probably not solid core, meaning that the door is not a solid piece of wood all the way through. Most doors have an airspace in the middle, which makes them a lot lighter, aka the mass thing. So we want to get the heaviest door you possibly can get. Next, you want to make sure that all the air gaps around that door are sealed up. So buying a bunch of different sizes weather stripping from your local hardware store is probably your best bet. And you can experiment with the size of weather stripping, but we use the Frost King brand in my home studio where I have a soundproof studio, and it worked out great. So when the door closes, you want to make sure that there's weather stripping all the way around so that no air is coming through. And then for the bottom, you're going to know most doors have a pretty large gap in the bottom of the door. So to fix that, there's a great company called Zero Industries, and you can buy one of their acoustic soundproofing drop seals. So these are specially designed to help with blocking sound from coming through the bottom of a door. So there's going to be a link to those in the show notes below this. Definitely something to check out. They can be a little pricey, but it could be worth it to get that soundproofing done. Otherwise, just sealing up that bottom of your door with something that has some mass to it could also work. Next, I would say, if you want to go all out, you can add magnetic weather stripping around the inside of your door. This would add that last solid airtight seal to your door. It is going the extra mile, but it could help if the original weather stripping doesn't do the job. Next, I want to talk about your windows, because if you have windows in this room, most likely they are the second point of entry for sound. So I have found this company called Indo, which I personally have not used, but I think they're an interesting option if you want to just have an easy way to try to beef up your window without spending a ton of money. So soundproof windows can cost upwards of thousands of dollars, and these Indo inserts would probably only cost you $100 or a couple $100. So they make custom sized inserts that actually go into your window, and then you can pull those inserts out with ease when you're not needing to soundproof your room or you want to open your window. So I think they're a great option for the average person who's trying to keep those noisy neighbors out. How much do they soundproof? Well, that's a great question. Having not used them myself, I'm not totally sure, but the company does say that they will increase the isolation of your window from the average window. So therefore, I think it's maybe worth a shot. Again, this is like the easiest way you could soundproof your room. Now, you're gonna have a vent register from your HVAC system, probably sending air into that room. And the size of that hole is something you're really not going to be able to deal with without doing major reconstruction of your room, which again, this is the easy method, so I don't recommend it. So that is one of the downsides, is that you want this airtight room, but you have this massive vent in your floor or in your wall or in the ceiling that could potentially let in sound. Lastly, I would say, all the vents aside, go around your room and see if you can just use regular old caulk, or you can buy fancy acoustic caulk, but either one will work really well for just sealing up any holes around the perimeter of your walls, in your floor, in your walls. If there's any actual holes that you can see, especially in old houses, seal those up with some caulk. And remember that airtight rooms are the key to soundproofing success. All right, so now let's go on to our second option, which is the professional way. The way that if I was really trying to build like a recording studio or a listening room, or if I just really couldn't stand those neighbors and I knew I needed to soundproof them out fully, this is what I would do. So when I talk about soundproofing and teach it here on YouTube, I like to think of the different sections of our room. So we'll start with the floor, then we'll talk about your walls, we'll talk about your ceiling, and then we're gonna have to talk about ventilation as well, and dealing with that pesky HVAC system. So here is the deal. So with your floor, if you're in a traditional house with a wood deck, you're gonna have to do some research and figure out how much weight your floor can handle. Because the goal of what we're trying to do here is we're gonna actually put layers, 2 to 3 layers of 5/8 inch drywall underneath your floor from the basement below. So we're gonna place these pieces of 5/8 inch drywall with green glue in the middle directly underneath your floor to add, you guessed it, mass. We want to make your floor as heavy as physically possible without your entire floor collapsing. It's a great idea to hire a professional structural engineer who could figure out the exact amount of pounds per square foot your floor can handle, so you know exactly how much drywall you can put underneath your floor. As you can tell already, this is definitely more money, it's more construction, and it's more involved, but like I said, you get better results. So this is a great way of beefing up your floor so sound will not come through. In other videos, I go more in depth into this, but I just want to give you the general idea of how to do this. Next, we're going to look at our walls. There's a lot of options for soundproofing walls, but I'm going to teach you the easiest one, which is you're going to have to take those walls down to the studs. I know that means ripping out all the drywall you have and getting it down to the studs. And what you're going to do is you're going to get these things called IB1 clips, which you can get in the notes below here from, well, I recommend using the Soundproofing company, but any soundproofing company will work. And you're gonna get 7/8 inch furring channel. And this is what's known as a hat channel system. And what you're basically gonna do is you're going to place these IB1 clips along the studs of your walls, and then you're gonna snap in these furring channels. And then after that, you're gonna take a layer of drywall, 5/8 inch drywall, which is the heaviest you can get, and you're going to screw that drywall into the actual furring channel so that it's not actually touching the wood studs. And remember, I talked about the idea of transmission. So what we are doing here by using these special clips and these furring channels is we're decoupling our drywall from the actual wood studs of your room, therefore making it so sound cannot come through and transmit into the room as easily. Before you put in those channels, you actually do want to make sure that you have just regular old pink insulation in there, and make sure that insulation is not touching your channel. So I guess if you took down your drywall, you could keep the insulation that was already there. Next, you want to put another layer of 5/8 inch drywall on top of the initial layer, and you're going to want to put this substance called green glue, which I mentioned earlier. And green glue is another special piece to soundproofing that's known as a dampening agent. And what it does is it actually decouples the two layers of drywall from each other, so sound can't as easily pass through the two layers of drywall. So it's another line of defense in your soundproofing system. So the green glue, you just get this special green glue and you get a little cool dispenser stick and you just kind of spread it on there in S shapes, and then you stick the drywall onto the first layer of drywall with the green glue on the second layer now, and you then screw in the drywall like you normally would. This is definitely a more involved system. It requires more cost with the double layers of drywall and all the extra added materials and your time and labor, but you're going to get better results. For the ceiling, you're going to do the exact same thing. So you are going to put in your IB1 clips on the ceiling, you're going to drill in your drywall, you're going to put in your second layer drywall with the green glue, and then you mud the entire room like you normally would with any construction project. We did this ceiling system in my own home studio, as you can see here, and it's worked out great. We actually did a different system for our walls, but this will work really well for your normal bedroom or a home office or a basement or something like that you need that extra soundproofing to keep out those noisy neighbors. Now we have to deal with ventilation. So ventilation is a tricky part. In a soundproof room like the one we just described, you're going to have an airtight room. So you need to have fresh air coming in and out of that room so you don't get a buildup of CO2 in that room. And, this is just basic physics here. So we're going to need fresh air coming from another room in your house, sending it into your room. And to do that, I would recommend building a dead vent. So a dead vent is a box that would be on the outside of your room, and you would literally send in a vent that goes down through the box that has insulation in it, and it's got the double layers of drywall and green glue and all that stuff, and then it's going to send air out the bottom, and it's usually about the entire length of the wall, and it's going to have a slight S shape in it, and you're going to put a little fan in the middle of the dead vent that you can switch on to suck air in and switch on the other direction to push air in from the outside, so you can change the airflow there when you're working in your soundproof room. So again, very involved. This may not be for everybody, but this is how you would do it. And lastly, you have to think about your HVAC system. So your HVAC system will potentially be pulling in noise from the outside. So to deal with that, technically, you would have to reroute your vent through what's known as a baffle box, and this will help with reducing sound that's coming into your room. Now, if you're keeping out noisy neighbors, you don't necessarily need to worry about the sound of the air flowing in like you would for a recording studio, but you do need to worry about sound traveling through the vents and then coming in through your noisy neighbors. So to do that, we'll create what's known as a baffle box, which is essentially building a box that would potentially be on either the outside or the inside of your room where that vent is coming in, and it will send the air through a series of right angle curves inside of a box that will then reduce the amount of sound that's coming through that vent and into your room, and then the air would be pumped out on the other side into your room. This is what we did in my home recording studio. You can kind of see our construction of the baffle boxes here, and you can see that it is kind of complicated, but it really did work. You cannot hear any sounds from the outside that are traveling through that baffle box, and I'm getting fresh air in here all the time. So that was a quick and dirty rundown of how I would go about soundproofing out noisy neighbors. Again, this is a ton of information. Soundproofing is complex. So if you are on the journey, if you're interested in learning more, definitely check out my free soundproofing course below. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you keep out those awful noisy neighbors and soundproof your room. All right, like, subscribe. I'll see you all next week.